So this is actually an EU-funded project through the Framework 7, FP7 program. The main leader of the consortium is Heriot-Watt University, where Andrew Peakcock is. It involves 3 eco-villages, Tamara, Damanhur, and Findhorn. And the project is called Origin. It's about the orchestration of renewable integrated generation in neighborhoods. We have our own wind turbines, lots of solar and thermal and solar PVs. So we are a community, as is Tamara and Damanhur, who generate their own energy. So this is about orchestrating or optimizing that energy. The other partners are Strathclyde University and a bunch of European universities and other institutions, like Fraunhofer Institution in Germany. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew now to explain more. Okay, yes.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you all for allowing me about 6 minutes, I think, to speak to you about the project. Some of the core things that we're trying to do is we're trying to match the demand in these communities with the intermittent nature of renewable weather-dependent generation. And we're doing that by, we're a bunch of mathematicians and engineers, so we're a bunch of geeks who have produced a series of algorithms and to predict when demand will be, when people like to use energy, and we then predict when renewable generation is available, and we provide that information to the communities such that they can start to make decisions about changing their behaviour to better match weather dependent rather than fossil fuel generation availability. So there's some core sustainability goals that we're addressing with this. One of them is associated with the delivery of affordable renewable generation for all. So we're very, very interested in changing the vector, if you like, of the way that energy is becoming, at the moment, more expensive for people to use. We're very interested in trying to understand how this technology that we're developing can make energy cheaper for people to use. So just to talk a little bit more with Findhorn data about what we mean about changing people's patterns of use to better match renewable generation. As I said, we're engineers and mathematicians, so we love graphs. Graphs is what we absolutely adore doing. This graph here shows a whole week of energy demand in Findhorn, and that's the blue line. So you can see it rising and falling, largely with people going to sleep, waking up again, boiling kettles, heating their homes, this kind of thing. The red line is what happened with wind generation during that week. So the blue is how much energy we're using just in our regular lives, and the red is the contribution of wind. So you can see that there are periods where there is no wind generation, and yet we still need energy during these periods. And similarly, there are periods where there's far too much wind generation, lots of surplus. And during these periods, what we're trying to do is encourage behaviour to move into these red periods and use more of this surplus. Now, the way in which we're trying to cascade money back to people is by accessing something called balancing mechanisms within electricity networks. Some of you may know storing electricity is very, very expensive. So the way that generally power networks work is that they balance supply and demand every millisecond of every day. And they do this by letting contracts out to different parties, different generators, and the generators respond. What they do perhaps is they respond on a second-by-second basis to these requests, or perhaps a minute-by-minute basis, or perhaps an hour-by-hour basis, to provide generation or to switch off their generation to meet demand, so that these lights always stay on. All these contracts cost money, they cost different amounts of money, and the total bill for balancing the network in this manner is in the UK, is about £1 billion. A third of that is associated with the fact that we cannot forecast the wind very accurately. So £300 million is paid to coal and gas generators, almost all of it paid to coal and gas generators, to modify their output to match the wind generation. And what we're trying to do with Origin, instead of it being paid to coal and gas generators, what we're trying to understand is how people can change their behaviour to better match wind generation and get some of that cash themselves, and not have carbon emissions associated with coal and gas plants oscillating to meet the wind generation. One of the things we've been very, very interested in trying to understand is the way in which we communicate this information to the participants in each of the communities. Now, what we did is we quickly realised that the way that engineers and mathematicians like to communicate things to people is not necessarily the way that people like to receive information. When I spoke to my mother about this, for instance, she was very interested in receiving a letter in the post to tell her that there was renewable generation available. As engineers, we would love to just put everything into data, into graphs. What we did is we ran workshops with each of the communities to try and encourage them to design effectively the communication strategy themselves. And this is the interface that arose as a consequence of their design inputs. Your eye may be drawn to the horse in the top left-hand corner there. The horse was designed by a chap called Roberto, who is a Damanhur citizen and a member of the project team. And he liked the idea of being told that there was renewable generation available by the speed at which a horse galloped. So if the horse was galloping quickly, there would be renewable generation available. And if the horse was listless and not looking very happy, then he knew that there was no renewable generation. So we designed a horse for him. It actually moves when you see it live on the screen. And a fabulous thing it is too. And there's a variety of other mechanisms that we use. So the clock, for instance, gives 12-hour ahead forecast of when renewable generation is going to be available, so people can start to plan their day. They can start to plan. They might decide that they're going to bake cakes with the wind, and they'll wait 8 hours to do that, for instance. So you can see, in terms of other sustainable goals that we're trying to address, carbon emissions is very dear to our hearts, and so clearly the project is addressing issues associated with the climate change agenda as well. And I think that gets me to the end, and I said I would do it quickly. We'd be very interested in speaking to other communities who would be interested in understanding how this technology works and how bespoke versions of it might be produced and developed and orientated towards their energy sources and their energy requirements. We've made, as I say, it's a very scalable system, and it can be applied anywhere in the world. And either myself or Michael, or also Mary Hollander and Paddy Atkins are also involved in the project.
Paddy, if you'd stand up just for a second so people know who you are.
Are also involved in the project from Findhorn. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you enjoy your conference.
Okay. Thank you. Somebody here is interested or wants to take, I've got plenty of brochures that describe this system. So just come and see me or come and see Paddy or Mari. Thank you.